PR Connections Radio presents. This podcast is brought to you by LifeWave. Ready to elevate your wellness game? Meet X39 from LifeWave.com. This game-changing patch uses phototherapy to stimulate your skin, enhancing strength and stamina by channeling your body's innate energy. Simply apply it to harness infrared heat, naturally boosting your vitality. Want to learn more? Visit www.lifewave.com/VernD and step into a healthier, more active lifestyle today.
Hi, welcome. So what do we eat? That is the question today, because there's so much happening in these stores. There's so much happening on TV that are giving you these visuals. My name is Lisa Vasquez. I'm your host today, Liberating Menopause. Welcome back. This is very interesting conversation. Women in the workplace, I mean, really the whole world of women. But in the workplace, I capture so much more attention because that's where everybody's at all day, right? At work. But after working in the medical field and seeing so many women come visit me and from the workplace, noticing how the world started to break us down in the way we present ourselves and in the fog of our minds. You know, sometimes you could be talking to somebody and they're so distant. They're talking with you, but they're really thinking somewhere else, because in our world today, we have so much to be thinking about. It's just like a nonstop conversation in our mind. Even though we're on one thought, we're thinking something else right away, because let's put it this way. It's like a tiger chasing you all day, right? You just keep running and running and running and running. And that's what this is all about. A lot about that cortisol that rises, that big chase that keeps us full of anxiety, there's so many things that take place in our bodies as a woman. And when those hormones start shifting and we're in survival mode, that's kind of how our bodies, we kind of gear them into that. It's not something that we really want to do, and it's not something that we're really focused and knowing that we're doing. But when you're at work, the main focus is work, right? The main thing starting Monday morning, mostly for most people, is get up in the morning and here we go again, and the race starts all over again, right? For those next 5 days. This episode is, I want you to reclaim yourself back into this world where you have more thoughts about yourself. I mean, sure, work is very important. And when I talk about that, it's because we grow up in school, and, you know, in today's world, some schools are really starting to become more nutritional for students, but not all. So imagine that we send our child to school all day, and you know, if we didn't create them a breakfast or a home cooked lunch, then they're going to go there and they're going to get what's being served. And, you know, it's for everyone, because everybody's getting served the same thing, right? It's a school, it's a cafeteria. You know, the menu doesn't change just because someone has a little illness in their little bodies or anything. It's something that has to be acknowledged. I mean, you know, of course, I have allergies to peanuts and things like that, but there's so much, and we are so bio-individual that, okay, so now we're growing up through this, and that's where most of our nourishment comes from. And now we get into high school, and really we're lacking so much nourishment because we didn't get it all from grade school, right? And now we want to get into sports, and we want to be active, and we want to join communities, and we want to do things, and we do. And here we are again, eating their food, running, you know, some high school students, they get lunch money. So, you know, there's a lot of cool shops around, but it's not like there's a designated holistic restaurant there that's really putting it out to send you for craves of lettuce and salads and things like that. That's not going to be a choice that a high school student would make. Some may. It just depends on the growing and where they're being raised from in the family environment and things like that. But in the majority, when you look around and you see, we are all usually on that fast, quick fix. And so now we get into work. Okay, so now we went to college. Now we're, living in campus. I've never lived on campus, but, gone there, seen this, and watched how, the college students develop and stuff. And it's not like they're really cooking in their kitchen, because they're so busy reading that, it's a munchie time, right? And, having a good time with their friends while they're doing that. There's the chips, everything's out there. But again, it's not full of nutrition. And again, always remember when I say this, there is that group that has nutrition in their program while they're sitting around. Maybe they are sitting around dipping some celery sticks or having some carrot sticks or something like that. But majority, not really. And now you go to work. So when you look at all these stages of life that you've grown up and you see how much the body has lacked in development because we did not have the right nourishment. I mean, some functions of ours haven't really matured because they weren't really nourished as well as they should have been growing up. And now here we are and we have to deal with those things. But now we're at work. And again, we're focused on work. And this is another giant adult playground, just like at school, but we're in charge. And after everything that we've just walked through, when you're at work, it's not, again, a time where you're going to we have to be really quick, right? Depending if you're downtown working, corporate worlds. I know for sure in the medical system, I know how the line of fried foods is longer than the line to get something really quick, like a nice salad or something like that. That girl standing there just waiting for somebody to come to her stand so she can fix them a salad. Other than that, the gravy train line is usually in the fried food lane, right? Because you got to do something quick. And then you want those flavors, right? That mood thing, and that's one thing that we weren't taught was to be able to recognize and see ourselves after we're eating these things, because every time we take a bite, we have the opportunity to create a wealth of health in our body. But that's not what we grew up knowing. No one taught us emotional literacy. They didn't teach us how to read things about what we're eating, because, if it says, for instance, peanut butter, it's just going to be peanut butter, right? But honestly, if you're evaluating and wanting to have a healthy structure, you're going to read the back of that, and then you're going to notice that it's just salt, water, I think, and peanuts, right? But then you look at another container and it's full of all this stuff. But these things are so overlooked because we have not been educated to look at those things. It's a real bummer, from the adult playground and workplace personalities to the cravings that aren't weakness, but it's a lot of hormonal changes. I don't know if you ever noticed when was the first time you've gained weight and how it kept going. And sometimes because we have expectations, right? And when we hit a certain age and we get stuck, and again, we have a lot of hormonal shifts that are not budging because we're not nourished well to create that balance in our bodies, because this isn't, again, education that we were brought up on. And by having these craves and things like that, these are just reactions of how we've always reacted toward food. We grown up with our cycles and we had craves back then, and we would reach for that chocolate or we would reach for that. So a crave coming into us is just a response and a reaction. Sometimes when I have those craves, it drives me crazy. So I'm going to tell you, the other day, I was sitting around, and of course, postmenopausal, at my age. And it's just funny because I was having these monstrous craves. Severe. Gosh, I wanted chocolate ice cream. And mind you, these are not everything that I eat. I munch on and, I go to solve my issue or something with a taste of it, but it's not something that I keep at home, or I definitely have to go out and get it. So I wanted ice cream. I wanted chocolate ice cream. I wanted, pound cake, golden pound cake. I wanted, oh my God, I was monstrous in my mind. And telling my husband because I want him to take me somewhere, get me out of here. I have to go get something. But then you know what? I stopped and I went to go look it up. And I looked up what about postmenopausal women, and these craves and these whispers. And then I started reading of how the hormones and how they're really kind of taking over. So it wasn't a matter of my willpower losing it, because that's how you definitely feel, because you're going to give in. And, I was really ready to give in. I mean, this isn't the first time that this happened. And sometimes I do go give in. I want some sweet tarts. I'm going to go buy some sweet tarts. But when this was happening, I really had to get a grip, and I really had to understand what the hell's happening to me. And so when I read about it, you wouldn't believe it, and I wouldn't either. But actually, after that, then I knew the only way to contain the beast of burden that's attacking me right now in my mind and these whispers was to actually go start cooking and start doing something good for myself, right? So, when menopause and food cravings come, there's many reasons that we experience intensified food cravings during menopause, and we have hormones called, one that is called leptin, and this one helps us recognize when we are full. But can you imagine that hormone actually decreases, and with the loss of estrogen and perimenopause that led up to that, we might be dealing with mood swings, right? Because if you're craving stuff and you're not getting it, I mean, and think about that, being at work, and sometimes I would want a bag of potato chips. 10 o'clock in the morning, I needed a salt kick. And so some of the messengers that run around town to deliver things for us, I would ask them, I'd call them up and ask them, could they stop and get me a bag of potato chips so that I could have this bag of chips at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I would have it. I mean, I'm telling you, I've gone through so many craves. I've gone through all those challenges. But with this one, I wasn't going to take it anymore, because again, this age, when you're here, you only, again, really want to keep bonusing. You really don't want to have anything coming in that's really going to be destructive, because the environment itself and everything around you, with all the energies and the personalities that you are surrounded by and all these other things, are going to stress you out and take you there. So I didn't want to give into this food. And so those mood swings, like I said, I was kind of driving my husband crazy, because he's like, well, what is it that you want? And I couldn't make that determination. That's why I was like, you know what? I got to look this up. I got to figure out what's happening to me. And so, we're not saying that you won't have your favorite foods again, because like I said, they come and go. It's here and there, but it has to really be minimal the more mature you become, because again, you want more fuel that's bringing you healthy. You don't want to feed from a flavor that can be disruptive in your system, in your hormonal shifts that you're having. But some of the most craveable foods are usually processed foods, right? So imagine somebody, young person, not even young, 40s or whatever, you're hungry, and you're going to the store, and you know that that's kind of not a good thing to do. You really should eat before you go shopping. You really should, because otherwise you're going to be grabbing everything, tasting, wanting, picking at things. So let's start with that. So, always, really kind of think about this, because that hunger can really take over hormonally, right? And the processed foods, they're high in such refined sugar, and they don't have ingredients that move you forward in your health goals, for sure. And that's another thing. I mean, does anybody out there really have a health goal? When you're going to work, are you really thinking about that? I mean, in majority of my 45 years, I never saw anybody really think about that. I did a lot, and I'm not tooting my own horn, but I had to, because, when you want healthy, you're singled out. You're looking like you're the weird person. I would go into my little kitchen, and I'd have all my food ready. I would bring slices of avocado, tomato, sweet potatoes, tofu, love tofu. So I'd eat that. All that would be on my plate. I have all my protein, everything. And that would be my 10 o'clock, 10:30 in the morning, mostly my lunchtime, 11:30. That would be my food. And people would look at me, because, they're not used to seeing that. And then they're coming in with these burgers. They're coming in because it's Taco Tuesday. They're coming in with so many fun things. But as I look at that and I see, I'm seeing, the fuel in me a lot more energizing than what I'm looking at watching what they're eating, because it's about to start dragging them down. I mean, nobody really thinks about the workout the stomach is doing, the body, the network. There's a real energy that takes place, just like if you're at the gym, it's working out. It has to push all these things through. And so this is why when we eat heavy food and a lot of that stuff, we get tired. Even though we didn't do anything, we just finished eating, right? What's the first thing we want to do is go sit down. We want to hold on to our stomachs. Because that exercise in the body is taking place while it's devouring and doing what it has to do with all that food, but it's not considered. And then we go lay down with that. And, there's so many wrong things that we have a habit of doing. And, the best thing to do is when you're eating on a nutritional base, you don't have that kind of feeling. You have a feeling of, contentment, lightness, knowing that the body's doing what it has to do, and it in a smooth move, right? It's breaking down, it's taking its time, and what it is absorbing, because they used to say you are what you eat, right? But it's what you absorb. And the more mature we become, the absorption goes lower. So that's why when we're eating, we need to change the basis of the strength of the food that we're putting in our bodies, because they are not as strong as we look out here. Not at all. They're aged. We're aged inside. We're lucky biologically that we can still present and look this way, and this is great. But that all destruction over time, over years, people who eat all this heavy stuff, all those highly inflamed, greasy foods, all these different things, that's the stuff that shows on you and grows on you. We want to eat the stuff that's going to glow on you. And that's why, again, I always tell you, I start from the inside. I've always visualized you inside. My whole conversation is with the network inside the body. I would see stomach exams come in and, see how the poor little stomach's screaming because it's got acid reflux, or, it's having all these issues in the stomach. That's why they're having an exam, right? I would see the kidneys bleeding out and see the blockages that are taking place, so I started becoming, I guess, friendly with the internal connection, because what else do you have when this is a repetition and this is what you see every single day? It's just like if, you're always around models, right? You're going to start modeling. You're going to start, dressing up. You're going to start putting on the makeup. You're going to start fixing your hair. You're going to start doing that. So when you're seeing the food inside and the breakdowns and the body and the complaint history that the patient just said, why they're here for that exam. And then, because in the medical system, when they do come, there's a printout in some situations, and that printout consists of everything that patient's on, from their medication to the complaints that they took to the doctor. Most of the doctor's notes are there, so you can read what is happening with this person. So not only from what the visual is presenting to me, now I'm reading, and now you can see how this all fits together. And this is why I like to bring this puzzle to you, to create more beauty in that puzzle, a food goal, something that if you really, again, once you hear these things, right, you can't unhear it. So I really hope you're out there, and I really hope I get your attention to listen, to hear that, because these things, once you know them, then maybe you can walk into that store. So imagine we're walking into a grocery store, right? What's the first thing you see? I mean, outside of that cool coffee stand that's standing right there, full of sugar and everything, just wanting you to come get it, right? Because now, even though you're not thirsty, you're going to want one, right? Because then you're going to walk around the store and you're going to have that. And then you're going to, go shopping. And then you're standing in an area of total carbohydrates, all boxed food and all this stuff, and this is why, what the heck do I eat? We don't know how to create that choice had the industry in the market created all the salads and fruits and vegetables in the center of the store and put those boxes on the outside, we'd have a better chance at reviving our bodies, right? By giving them, the protein, and recognize that it's healthy to eat foods you enjoy. And again, it's not like we grew up knowing that lettuce has a great taste, or, if you put this on it or do that, nobody created that. I mean, you grow into salads. But hopefully in this new generation, I know there's a lot of little kids and stuff like that eat a lot of good little vegetables and fruits, but the majority and the generations that I came from, that's not what happened. As I said, in my culture, there'd always be a side little salad, but it was really designed. It wasn't coarse and main stuff, right? And then a lot of times, because of the culture, we take that stuff off, get rid of it, and they'd ask, you want my salad? You want this? Just to get it off the plate, because it's not even something they want to look at. They want the meaty part of what's on that plate. And again, this is how we've been conditioned from, everything that we ate to these cravings. And then, we feel like in women, we're having willpower problem, right? Because gosh, those craves are strong. So on that subject, back to when I was cooking and I did create my plate, and I did, after I ate it, I felt so content, I felt so happy, and I felt so more empowered. I empowered myself and understood now that, because I can't keep giving in to those craves. As I gave in, they started getting stronger. And it was to that point that it was so chaotic in my mind that I didn't know what I wanted. I wanted this, I wanted that, I wanted this, I wanted that, and it's all the things that I don't eat. And that's when my body was like going crazy, like, oh man, please, come on. I mean, even, we're talking hydration, drinking lots of water. Let's talk about that for a minute, because I see people walking around with gallons, right? And they're just drinking and drinking because it's been said that, we need so much water a day. And some people feel that if they overdo that amount of daily intake, that, they're even benefiting their bodies more. But actually what we do is we start to dehydrate our bodies, because we start washing away our electrolytes and our minerals, everything that we do need. So, they want to say more now, that we want to drink more when we're thirsty, but always being regulated with, hopefully you are getting your 64 ounces a day, and every body type has a different amount of water that it needs. But for the people that walk around with those big jugs and they sip on it and they take it back home and they're still drinking it, and you have to understand that if you wash away and dilute your stomach content, it interferes with your digestion. It interferes, when we do those things. We're not getting enough minerals and vitamins off the nutrition and environment soil that we have today. So if we're washing them away and dehydrating with the thought that we were doing a benefit for ourselves, without this knowledge, this is the power, this education I bring to you is to help us eliminate this world of medication, right? Because I don't really want that industry to rise bigger than the industry of eating healthy and having a balanced life. Because if we knew how to do that and headed toward that, the world would see that and react and probably produce more goodness than junk. But we got a long time to get through that, because there's so many demands for the stuff that I was just talking about. So, staying hydrated, again, sometimes we think that, overhydrating is going to be the thing, but it's not. Setting a goal, thinking about that, thinking about what I'm going to be 40. When you're going to turn 40, I don't know what your thoughts are about it, but does anybody think I need to start changing my diet now? No, they don't, because obviously you should have started at 35, but now you're at 40 and if you don't know, you should have had a baseline mammogram. You should get some chemistry charts on your hormones and blood labs and things like that. Some type of physical chest x-ray maybe, especially just having a physical, just going to the doctor and stuff like that. When you think of your age that you're walking into and thinking of how to create you to be better this next decade, this is the balance that you should be bringing into your life for every decade and every day of your life. Like I said, every bite that we take is our opportunity to create a plate, to create advancements in our life, to help us develop and be strong because of the years past and what we didn't get. We lived off of all of that flavor instead of fuel. We need to fuel for the rest of these years. As I said, 1 out of 7, I think it's still 1 out of 7 people will live to be 100, and women. And, being that way, if you're destructing your body now, if you're over taxing it by these heavy foods and this long digestion, and then, we'll talk about this maybe in the month from now. I think I'm going to start looking at that conversation. But constipation, there's a big part of the world that is totally constipated, and not one of us know who that is. Sometimes you can tell by mood swings and things like that. When people have a lot of issues, they're not feeling well, and we have a high rate of constipation that's taking place and really messing us up in our world, in our lives. And again, we ask for those expectations. We have expectations that, we're going to lose weight, right? And then it doesn't happen. And now you just reduced yourself into comfort because you didn't have the right tools, or you had the tools, because a lot of people have those exercise things in their bedroom and they just sit there or become the clothes rack, right? But if you really use those tools that you have to change the world that you're in, and you want to present yourself in, those are the things that will bring you that weight loss that you're looking, right? But if you don't, you reduce yourself into comfort. And then expectations can be broken, and now you're just comfort. And it's just like, it's not going to happen. And it's not true, because those are the times that you have to really fight through and do it. Nobody is really crazy about doing any of that. But when you think about how you want your body to run, it's just like your car, right? You want those brakes to stop on time, right? So you're going to make sure that the brakes pads and all that stuff are measured out completely. You hear when the screeching is happening, so it's time, right? And so the body, when it gives you signals, we just keep going. We don't stop to hear the signal. Well, we hear the signal, but we don't stop to listen to the signal or react and figure out, how can I help that signal? This, again, modern day workplace that we're in, outside of being structured more for the male attitude than the female side, we have fast food courts, we have fluorescent lights, constant stress, no nourishment. And this corruption in conversation leads to medication, when what we really need is education. That's what it's all about. And that's what Liberty Menopause is all about, because I want you to know these hormonal conversations and understanding. By this conversation, you can develop such a great life toward your pension and retirement by understanding and following this. We want to eliminate having that medication. I don't know, in your life, your family's life, what kind of generation you look back on. Was it histories of high blood pressure, diabetes, all these things, obesity, all that stuff? Sometimes it can just stop right where you're at today, whether you're 37, 40, wherever, 50. It's never too late to really, the body, again, if you put too many apps on it, just like on your computer, right, it's going to get sluggish. It's going to, not work fast enough, not think fast enough. It's going to go real slow. And that's, that's our brain, right? They tell us we have a brain that's way better than a computer, right? But we still put all those apps on it by putting all that junk in us and not having the stuff that's, We're not cleaning out the cache. We're not restarting. We're not resetting. Does anybody ever just really take the time to have a weekend and cleanse their body? I grew up and I had a friend, her and her brother, and her mother would have them cleanse once a month on castor oil, if I'm not mistaken. She was a beautiful gal. And, and I was young. It's like, wow, really? You can't come out because of why? And that's why she couldn't come out. So, but, so you hear these things, but does anybody do that today? That's the whole thing. That cleanse that can really a shift in your body, really create a change. That's what we are looking for. To look at, we want to honor the biology and build a foundation before the breakdown, not after. And that's the whole problem, is that we don't understand that by eating all that processed foods here and there, now and then, when, the main thing is to minimize the junk, maximize the good, and socially have some of that mixed together, but majority is maximizing, because you want to remove all the things that are creating the sluggish attitude. You have to remember that you have a lot of people around you, and when you look around, you have a lot of attitudes shifting. You have a lot of people that change on the drop of a dime. I mean, sometimes you have to come into work and take temperatures, because is she going to say hi today? Is she in the mood? Is he in the mood? How's the doctor feeling? Everybody, we have to temperature gauge everybody, right? But when you're feeling good with yourself, you're just walking in all jolly and great. And then some people don't like that either, because you might be over happy for them and they're not in the mood for that. So outside of the stress of what we do when we eat, outside of, all these other different breakdowns, there's just so much that we have to understand that builds our stress up, that can really destruct ourselves. And, it's just such a big struggle that, most people, if we could just come together, understanding this, like when people bring food in to service your team, I still see it's all big old sandwiches. And yeah, what's in the sandwiches is great, and kind of not really, because there's a lot of nitrates and all that stuff and all that lunch meat and things like that. But then the bread, I mean, depending on who's bringing in that bread, I mean, when you really understand the differences in all those breads, all that, I mean, it looks good, it's palatable, really refreshing to the eyes, and you can't wait to eat it, right? But I always think about the opportunities, and are they really nourishing you? And if you just took the salad out of that sandwich, you'd benefit, right? Because the rest of the stuff isn't so much benefiting. And, when the age stage of personalities, and you see it across in decades, it didn't just start today, but that's sometimes how you feel. I mean, all the way to postmenopausal women. I mean, there's always constant bickering and stuff like that. That doesn't go away. 20s and 30s insecurity people, they're snide with their comments sometimes. 30s to 40s, there's a lot of superiority. They know a lot better. And then you got 40s to 50s who it's all known, right? Because they're in their 50s, right? And then 60s, the maturity, the wit, the wisdom, the clarity, because now you're really developing yourself and you've seen so many errors. And the one thing I don't want ever to happen is that you come to a point where it's not going to be reversible, no matter how much you try. It's already there, it's already damaged. And this is the big break, and this is what this is all about, is trying to catch it before that breakdown takes place. So with that, I'm looking forward to our next conversation on this, understanding what the heck do I eat? Because there's so much out there. But what do I eat to nourish? How do I stay hydrated? The delay or distractions, is less more. We want to know all these things because it's all about our hormones, and that's what we're feeding. That's what we want to have nourished, so that the rest and those messengers can speak to everybody inside our network and get it all going together, so can all have a smooth mood as it goes in and as it comes out. All right, everybody, have a great week. And again, Lisa Vasco is coming to you from PR Connections Radio. I mean, prconnections.com. Sorry. Take care. Bye.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.